sit. This is Leo. Isn't he a handsome fella? And this is, in this video, I'm going to go over some tips to help your dog recall or come back to you. I'm also going to show you, well, the first thing I'm going to do is show you an exercise. Now, basically for dogs, a lot of times we ask them to come, and I'll explain kind of why I'm doing this exercise first, but a lot of times we ask the dog to come, it's having a good time. We're at the dog park, he's yelling at a squirrel, it's time for us to leave. We say, Leo, come, Leo, come, Leo, come. We just say it over and over again. We will desensitize the dog for the word come and it'll stop listening for us. Number one, so you only say it once. What I do is I say it once. If the dog doesn't listen to me, then I say it, actually I'll say it 3 times. Once normally, Leo, come. If he doesn't come, then Leo, come. See how he checked me out. Lower your voice and say it a little bit sternly. If he didn't come then I would walk over to him and attach the leash and take him with me. Now, when you walk over to him, be careful you don't like stomp over there. He's going to run away because it appears clearly that you're mad. So we just want to go over there and let him know, look, if you don't do it, I'm going to come and make it happen. I'm not going to do it vindictively, and I'm not going to do it get frustrated. And that's one of the mistakes that people make is the dog finally does come to them and put them on a leash and they go, pop the leash a little bit. Next time, you better come. Don't make me ask you 19 times. Well, when I did listen to you, you punished me. So next time I'm just not going to come because you can't catch me. You only have 2 legs. So when your dog does come to you, even if you had to call a whole bunch of times, which you shouldn't do, 3 times like I talked about, but when your dog does come to you, make sure you pet it. Now the guardian here does something I see a lot of people and I see a lot of dog trainers do, is the dog comes to you and say, good dog. So when the dog comes to you, you want to say the word come and only the word not even good come, just come. Now, if you've been using come and the dog's spotty about it, you might want to come up with a different word. If you've been saying come, you might want to say here. So we throw away the baggage that came with the old word. Now one of the easiest ways you can get a dog to come is with passive training. Passive training is basically, I guess I'm going to show you the exercise at the end of this, but passive training, sit. That's passive training. I didn't ask him to sit, but he sat. And within 3 seconds of him doing what I wanted, come. That's also passive training. Now, it's not quite passive training because I have treats in my hand, but basically passive training, you wait for the dog to organically offer you the behavior you want when you're not asking for it. So if you're watching TV and the dog comes up to you, pet him and say the word come. Or if you're going to change it to here, that'd be the best way to start introducing it. Every time he comes to you, pet him and say the word here. Not good here, just here. And then he goes and does his own thing, even if he's just walking past you, here as he walks by. So now every time I come to the human, I hear the word here. So here just means go to the human and get some attention. Well, we throw away the baggage that might come with come from the way we introduced it before. So passive training is the easiest way to train a dog anything that it automatically does, that it already does on its own. Now he is jumping up a ton because his guardian pets him at times when he jumps up, or she shoves him down, which is a very common mistake people make with dogs. But if I shove him down, I'm going to make him do it more. So what I'm doing is just moving the treats out of his reach, and as soon as he gets down and SITs, then he'll get a treat. Sit, and I'm saying the word sit, just the word sit. But in this one, we want to talk about just the recall. So if you're watching TV or doing anything, every time he comes to you, say here or come up with a new command word and just say just that word when he does it on his own. Don't say here when you're outside. Don't try to use it for about 2 weeks. Just every time he comes to you, here, unless he's jumping up on you, then don't pet him for doing that. Or when he comes to you and he jumps up, then that would be something we don't pet for. All right, now a little bit of the science of the hand, and then I'll get you into an alternative way of calling your dog. So for a dog, see how I have his attention? There's nothing in my hand. The cupped hand, I call this the science of the hand, but the cupped hand makes it look from his perspective like I have something. Now the height matters. If I want a dog to sit, I go in an arc over their head. When he sits, usually it's better if you have a treat. When he sits, I pet him and say sit. Or if he comes to me, I just make a dog. When it comes to me, I make it sit. So let's say he ran over to me, I'll go like this. Come. Even though he sat, what I was rewarding was going to be the come. Now, he didn't do it in this is demonstration purposes. So if you're calling him, before you call him, hold up your hand like this. It'd be better if you actually had a treat in your hand. Now, you hold it with a 90-degree bend at your elbow here. So I want to be able to go up or down. So if I want him to go to sit, I usually rock it over his head to put him into a sit like that. Sit. And if when I do that, if he dances, which he did before, if you watched before, I bent my elbow away. So as soon as you come over the ground, the treat goes away. So we're using the treat as a lure. Now, if I want him to come to me, the lower I go with the treat, the more accessible it comes for the dog. Come. So you saw, as soon as I started lowering it, he started coming towards me. So what you want to do is, if you're going to ask him to come to you, you're at the dog park or wherever it is, pull out a treat first, put it in your hand, so when he looks at you, this is what see how quickly he's coming to me already? So a lot of us, we call our dog and we're going to do a treat, and the dog looks at us, and this is what they see us doing. Well, I clearly don't look ready. This looks ready. So you say it once, come. And if the dog starts to come to you, then you raise it when he comes over to you, put him in a sit and bend away, and then lower it, let him get the treat, and then we tickle him under his chin. Now, if he doesn't come to me, sit. If I said come and he sees my hand, I go like this. I start lowering it. And then I curl my fingers up as I go down so he can't see it. I see a lot of people, this is LA, everybody here is an actor, so it's a little bit better than in the Midwest. A lot of times I say to people in the Midwest, all right, lower your hand. They're like, well, I just showed there's nothing in my hand. There's no rigidity to my hand. So you want to pretend when you don't have a treat like you have one, but you always want to have a treat the first couple times when you do it. Sit. So that way he just starts seeing this is almost like a hand signal. When she's got her arm bent like this, ooh, I'm about to get paid off and get a treat. Now, another thing that's important to understand is a lot of us train our dogs to misbehave or to not listen to us because we try to compete with something that's more appropriate or more intense for them at the time. If the dog is barking at a squirrel and the tree is right here and you're 25 feet away, well, the squirrel is a lot more proximate and the dog really is interested in squirrel. They have prey drive and all the rest of that stuff. You're going to lose that battle 100% of the time. So if your dog is having a good time yelling at the squirrel and you're just over there saying, come, 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 you're training your dog to not listen to you. So if your dog is if you're competing, you would just go over. I wouldn't even call it once. I would know that my dog's going to just go over there, attach the leash, and then put the martingale, the special twist leash, and then take him away. Now you have to be careful because if you keep on calling him away from fun stuff, then your call represents the end of fun time. And I'm holding up here just so he won't stop molesting me. But basically, if every time I'm at the dog park, the only time you ask me to come is when we're leaving, well, then that's what the come represents, the end of fun. I'm going to stop coming and promote the playtime continuing. He's not allowed to bark. And so one of the things I do is have some treats. You have to be careful at the dog park because sometimes you get other dogs coming up. So maybe if other dogs are starting molesting you, don't do it when they're there. Now, I have really high value treats that he can smell. That's why you see he's jumping all over me to get them. Well, what I would do is sometimes when you're at the dog park, the dog will come check in with you. Every once in a while, just for no reason, like, hey, how's it going? You cool? Okay, I'm going to go chase this dog. Every time it comes to you, here, and then let it go and play. So now, every time I hear the word here doesn't mean the end of fun. It just means go to my human, get a treat, and then go play some more, most of the time. And this is why we also supplement it with passive training. So every time a dog comes to you, you pet him and say, here. So, and then he gets to go and do his own thing. So it no longer is representing the end of fun time. So before you call the dog, and the other thing you might want to do is, before I show you this alternative way of calling your dog, two alternative ways of calling your dog, is to have some friends come over and practice your recall. Now, when we go to a dog park, do you go to Jocelyn? The one that's just right over
I go by the airport,
Strand?
and then I do the other one, Sepulveda.
Okay. There's one in Jocelyn, which is right down the street from my place in Santa Monica, and there's a small dog one, and then there's a large dog one that's huge. Small dog one, often, unless it's like from 4 o'clock to about 6 o'clock, there's people there then. The rest of the time, there's nobody there. But there's a lot of smells there. So we have to help our dog practice anything we want them to do. So if we go to the dog park and maybe enlist the help of 2 friends, go to the dog park and go to the Jocelyn one, go to the small dog area when there's no dogs there. And then basically let him go in there and sniff around first because he's going to want to get his sniffs in. Once he gets his sniffs in and he kind of comes back to you, then each one of you guys has these treats and form a triangle. So we're about as far apart as we are from the camera, about 7 to 10 feet apart. And then basically have the other 2 people, so you have a triangle or other shape, but you have to have at least 3 people. And then basically one person's in charge. And if you're in charge, you point to me and say, David. I say, here. Now this is when I'm first teaching a dog. I just use the hand motion to get the dog to come over. If the dog knows it, and I would say here when he comes to me, I raise my hand over to put him into a sit, give him the treat and say here, then I point to the next person, or whoever's in charge points to that person. So only one person's calling him at a time. So now we're helping him practice at the dog park, but without the presence of other dogs. That's going to be way too hard. You're going to lose that battle unless you really practice it first with no dogs around. So at first we're all about 7 feet apart. Then we move, after he starts coming pretty consistently with a bounce and step and right away, then we move a little bit further apart until eventually you're really far apart at the dog park or wherever you're at, where the dog has to really go a far distance to get to you, comes to you and you raise your hand to put him in a sit. After a while, they'll just come and sit in front of you. Then you just give them the treat. You don't have to raise it over their head. So you want to keep on practicing this in a stimulated in an environment. And it'd be best if there's no dogs even in the big dog park. But if it's just no dogs in the small dog park, he might be interested. That's why we let him sniff around at first. But basically, we help him practice in the area that we want him to be in, the behavior that we want, and we reward the heck out of him. And again, every time he checks into you, that's a super duper important one. That's one that most people don't. They just pet the dog and hey, or they don't even say anything. So every time he comes and checks in like this, here, and then let him go and play his business, do his business. So he might get 15, 20 treats from you. Just every time I come to her, something good happens. So now the dog wants to. All right, so now I'm going to show you the 2 alternative ways of calling your dog to come to you. So the first one is what I call the bump. So I have a treat in this hand. I'm going to make a fist with this hand. I'm going to put the treat in here, and I'm going to go like this, bump. So I put a treat in my hand, and I hold it out. Let's get him to go further away, and I will show you. Bump. Any touch to my hand makes me flip it over, and there's a treat in there. So a lot of us, when we say come, again, it represents that end of fun time that I talked about earlier. So if he's not paying attention, and at home, you go like this, bump, bump. And again, not good bump, not what a good boy, just the word bump. Bump. Now these treats have a really strong smell, so he's naturally going to put his nose up against it. After you do this while, your dog will run across the room and smash his nose into your fist, almost give himself a bloody nose because he's so excited for that. So this is an alternative way of calling. So you should represent or practice this and rep it a little bit at home so he does get practice at doing that. But then if you're at the dog park, you say, come, he doesn't come. I'm not going to come because I'm yelling at this dog over here. Bump. Oh, bump means go get a treat. And so we kind of take that away from him. The wanting to not listen, we take that part away. All right, the next thing I'm going to show you is basically a touch or hand targeting exercise. Have you showed him this? Okay, so what it is, I usually, they don't have to sit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to karate chop with my hand. Now, dogs' eyes are very attracted to movement. They're very poor for detail or for color. Like, I would not get a dog bed with this sort of pattern on it because there's so much pattern, it's going to be hard for him to see, again, for the detail. I always like very solid colors. A light cream, a white, or a light gray is the best color for dogs to see things for the contrast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop my hand here within 2 inches of his nose, and when he touches his nose of my hand, I'm going to take the treat, go to this hand. Now the mistake a lot of people do is they chop and they pull it back and then put the treat here, or they chop with the treat. The idea is come to my hand, not come to the hand with the treat. Come here, sit, target. And I usually switch hands. Target. Now he's not figuring out quite right away. After a while, they'll know there's a treat in your hand. Target. Now I'm going to try to get him to move a little bit further away. So he's thinking I'm throwing it. There we go. Target. Now let's see if I can get a step out of him. So if he doesn't, then pull back and chop closer. Target. 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 Now, he's not giving me steps. Usually this is pretty easy. So usually dogs do this pretty quickly. I'm sure he'll do as soon as we stop filming. But the idea is you chop within 2 inches of his nose. And don't chop in front of him. Chop next to him. There you go. And then you put the treat there. And we say target or touch or whatever the word is you want to use. And so at first, he just leans, turns his head, and it's there. Then he has to lean for it. Then he has to take 1 step to get to it. Then 2 steps, 3 steps. When I do this in our puppy class, it's great because people think I am like a Jedi because I go like this, and I can move the dog around and reposition the dog whatever direction I want. A lot of times when I take a picture of the dog, we go like this. See how he turned away? Because I forced him into doing something. They have an opposition reflex. They're going to force, and they're going to go back against force or pressure. So if I have the targeting exercise, I I can reposition him if I want to take pictures or get him to look this way or go that way. This can also be an alternative way of calling your dog. So if you're at the dog park and you say come and he doesn't come, you go like this. Target. Then you put the treat there. But don't ever have the treat here. Put the treat comes to your other hand. Once you chop this hand, it's frozen. You have to move this treat hand there. So now you have a couple of alternative ways of calling your dog. Now the primary should always be come, or in this case, I would change it to here. So we're going to say here first. If that doesn't work, we're going to do what we first talked about at the beginning. Say here in a lower voice. If that doesn't work, then go over to him, attach leash, and let him know we're going with you. But also, also we're going to supplement it by passive training. Every time he comes to us, pet him and say here. And then we're also going to do use the hand motion. So before we call him, we're going to have our hand out like that, and then say here. And when he looks at us, if he doesn't come, then we lower it, raise it, here, and then pet him as much as little as you want. And then the two alternative ways is the bump, or target. Now, I haven't given him a ton of them for the bump and the target, so you see he's not fully coming straight to it. After you rep this for a couple of days, after a while, they'll just come right away, and they'll smash their nose into your nose with the bump, or they'll come right away to get that hand, or the chop for the targeting exercise. So I'd like you to practice the bump. Because there's only one guardian here, we can't really have a lot of people practicing together. So I would just have some treats with you, and every time he's away from you, hold up your hand like that, he comes over, bump. So instead of getting like 10 reps in a row, you get one, then let him get distracted and have another one. Next time he's not paying attention, hold it out, do the bump. So you want to try to do, what I would do is I would get like 2 ramekins. Well, careful where you put them. But basically a ramekin that I put maybe 15 treats in there, and that's for the bump. So by the end of the day, I want to deplete all 15 of those treats. And then for the hand targeting exercise, is that something you can rep and do? And I usually go this side, then put all the treats over here, and then chop this side. And so I kind of do back and forth and get him going further and further. That's when you can rep and do several in a row. I would probably do about 8 to 12 of those, and we're just going to ignore that for now. We do about 8 to 12 of those 3 times a day. Now that one's super simple. If you do 3 times a day for a week, you should be able to target anywhere you want and he'll run right up to you. Also, when you're practicing, make sure you practice in different locations. So in the house, if we're doing the target or the bump, don't just do it right here. Do it here, there, upstairs, downstairs, all in the bathroom, all over the place, so he's used to doing it in different locations. Same thing with practicing the come at the dog park, is if you're in the small part of the one on Strand Street, you know, sometimes go to the other side where there's wood chips. It's a really long, skinny one. There's some of which just sand, and one of them is the wood chips. So move in different parts of the park so he's practiced coming to you. And that's one of the things people go to the dog park, they get frustrated when there's no dogs there. That is the best way to help your dog practice coming to you. So let him sniff. And he's sniffing, don't wait for him to compete with the sniffer. Don't try to do that. But as he sniffs, and he puts his head up to look for the next part to sniff, come. He looks at you, you start lowering your hand. He comes to you and go all the way to the floor like that. Come, and then let him go and sniff some more. So if you have a dog that doesn't come and you go to the dog park and no one there, don't get frustrated. Celebrate, especially here in LA, because that almost never happens. There's always dogs at the dog park. That's a wonderful way to practice it. But the passive training and all the rest of that stuff will all be equally effective. All right, well, let's see, we can do one more targeting for Mr. Leo, and then we'll wrap this one up. Target. Well, this is Leo, and these are some tips and tricks you can use to teach your dog to come to you if you have problems with that.